Movies and games have an interesting and varied history. When the multimedia and merchandising boom really started to take shape, many film studios wanted to cash in by making a coinciding video game adaptation. For the most part, this didn't go well. Some standouts do exist, such as GoldenEye 007, Peter Jackson's King Kong, and X-Men Origins Wolverine. But for the most part, the two formats really didn't get along. Many projects were handed off to lesser developers and rushed out to meet film premiere dates, quickly crafting a poor reputation for the genre. Some of the worst offenders included the infamous E.T. on the Atari 2600, Charlie's Angels in 2003, and 4 God of Thunder in 2010. In this breakdown, we're going all the way back to 1998 with A Bug's Life for the PlayStation. It was developed by Traveller's Tales, who had already entered the adaptation scene 3 years earlier with Toy Story. As for the film itself, most would agree it isn't Pixar's best, but this early release is still far better than many of their more recent efforts. The tale of ants rising up against their oppressors with the help of some colourful circus performers always worked well, and Kevin Spacey's Hopper is a very imposing and memorable villain. I remember asking my parents for the VHS with Hopper on the front cover years ago. At age 7, A Bug's Life was my first introduction to games based on popular film productions. I would lose my physical copy over time, but the game ended up being re-released on the PlayStation Network store years later. Other titles in my catalogue back then included Tarzan, Toy Story 2, Tomorrow Never Dies, Stuart Little 2, and Disney's action game featuring Hercules. At the time, Disney Interactive Entertainment was very keen to exploit the 5th console generation. All of these games varied in terms of quality, but A Bug's Life fared the worst on a critical level. At the time of its release, reviewers lambasted the game for bad graphics and imprecise controls. Surprisingly, I still got plenty of fun out of it, and when replaying for this video, it does hold up in many ways. You can judge a film adaptation by several factors. How closely does it follow the source material? How much involvement did the filmmakers have in the video game? And most importantly, does it succeed at converting the film into a playable format? A Bug's Life PS1 hits all the major beats of the film, while also mixing in other interactive elements, most notably Flick's journey to the centre of the anthill and later the big city, adding extra levels to compensate. Some work better than others, but all the big moments are there, and bugs who only make brief appearances in the film serve as enemies in the game, like the Daddy Longlegs. Flick riding the dandelion to begin his quest was one chapter that always stood out to me, though I was always terrified of the bird killing our hero in one hit whenever he was caught out in the open. The most surprising thing about A Bug's Life PS1 is how creative it gets with the core gameplay. It does so with two major mechanics, seeds and berries. The player can grow and upgrade various plants by jumping on top of seeds. Depending on the colour, they serve many helpful functions. Using these seeds is very intuitive. When Flick picks up or interacts with a seed, he can change the colour and plant type with a push of a button. The red and green seeds are used for platforming, ranging from a bouncing mushroom all the way to a vertical cannon that fires you upward. When you combine these two plants together, you can reach higher areas more easily. The blue and purple seeds are more utility focused, with the former giving you brief abilities like the super jump, and the latter allowing for quick access to berries. In the most extreme cases, you'll need a berry cannon to drive off the bird in one level, collecting seed upgrades to complete your main objective. All told, the developers were very inventive when designing the core action here, despite being limited by a shorter production schedule. Flick also has a surprising number of moves, jumping on enemies, a butt stomp, and using his trademark grain harvester if you can find it around the levels. The berries are your primary means of defense, being split up into rising power levels. Starting off with red berries, the more powerful enemies are immune to your attacks, but once you upgrade to the Mega Homing Berry and the explosive Gold Berry, all of your foes will go down easily. This rewards the player for exploration, and in the case of the Gold Berry, it also counts towards completion, as blowing up each enemy will keep them from respawning. It's very impressive how Traveller's Tales took a very loose feature from the films and turned it into a core component. Many of the levels are wide open with plenty of nooks and crannies, while others allow you to tackle objectives in any order you wish. In the opening level, your task is to reach the anthill, but there are several side areas along the way. In the city, Flick has to find the various circus bugs, but doing so requires a lot of exploration around a larger map. Later on, things get even better with Assemble the Bird and Blueberry Scouts to the rescue. Between collecting parts around the location and making your way to the top of a tree, the variety really starts to expand as you progress. I always loved how Grasshopper's Leave takes place under heavy rain. Just like the film, the atmosphere is moody and oppressive, emphasizing the spike in difficulty. Flying grasshoppers need to be taken out to drop precious seeds, and some of the side characters assist you with obtaining items along the way. A Bug's Life PS1 does represent the look of the film as well as it can, while also boasting a solid soundtrack to complement the levels. With all that said, some criticism is warranted when it comes to the controls. Flick has some very awkward traction on the ground, and his jump can be very floaty. You may find yourself slipping into a bottomless pit from time to time. Other more frustrating flaws do persist depending on the level you're in. Even at 7 years old, I never liked the arduous trek through Riverbed Run. This bland maze of canyons goes on far too long, and climbing these towers to reach collectibles can get really tedious. Taking on the horsefly FUD in a spinning tin can is pretty ambitious by PS1 standards, but the problem comes when the boss throws blue berries that downgrade the golden one and force you to restart the level. Trying to pick up all the grain in a circle is also a massive pain. If you let this item blink out of existence, that's another level reset. Some of the more ambitious set pieces don't really work either, especially towards the end of the game. The boss battle with Molt takes place in a cramped arena where you have to awkwardly move seeds around to pick up all of the collectibles. Chapter 14, At a Flight, really takes the cake when it comes to frustration. In this clumsy and chaotic mess, you'll hurry through narrow canyons to the bird's nest while being chased by Hopper every step of the way. Between bumping into obstacles, fiddling with the floaty controls, and being surprised by enemies, it's an absolute slog. Doubly so if you're going for 100% completion. I would be very impressed if anyone made it through this level without taking any damage or losing a life. Still, the last level against Hopper does pick things up. In the final showdown, the villain will rain silver berries down on you as you gradually push him towards the clutches of the bird. Ultimately, A Bug's Life definitely overcame most of the criticism for me. Nowadays, movie licensed games are all but extinct, mainly because corporations have found more lucrative ways to nickel and dime their customers. Most adaptations from the 90s through to the 2010s were struck down by low review scores and quickly forgotten. The tables have turned in recent years as movies based on video games have achieved massive success with audiences. Nintendo and Sony have been very keen to convert some of their biggest properties to the silver screen, like the Super Mario Bros. Movie and Gran Turismo. The movie license genre may be gone, but if you look in the right places, there are still some enjoyable gaming experiences to be had. Thanks for watching. A Bug's Life PS1, even with all its flaws, still succeeds over 2 decades after release. Which games based on movies did you enjoy? Did any of them deserve more attention from the masses? Feel free to share in the comments below. You can follow my blog and channel at the links in the description.